both of the girls, yes, we did go to Canada with them a number of times. They like Canada, and they also like to go to Washington, DC. They both loved that city, and we took them there, I think, 2 or 3 times maybe, because that's where they wanted to go and see everything that's there's so much to see there, and, they liked that very much, so those are trips we took with them. Well, one of the places we went to was a cannery where they canned vegetables, and they were doing, green beans while we were there. That was the main thing that they were doing at the time, and, when we were ready to leave, they had all the cans were there, of course, and they said, "Oh, let us give you something." Well, now, whenever I traveled with the children, I always carried a big straw basket as a purse, so I could put sweaters, the children's sweaters, and so forth. And that's how you do that. Well, anyway, I had this big straw purse with me, and they started giving me cans of beans, cans of corn. I don't know how many cans they kept giving us things. But this man who took us through, he was well, I shouldn't say funny. Uh, he was gay, I assume, and it just came out all over him. And every time he'd look at something, he'd say, "Oh my, yes," and he'd do that. "Oh my, yes." So after that, I never really cared much for canned beans, string beans, green beans. But one time was a long time after that. I guess I didn't have any fresh vegetables or something, and I opened a can of these beans, and both of the girls said, "Oh, mom, are these? Oh my, yes, beans." And one of the places we went um, was sardines. They were canning sardines. One of the places that we went to. Now they were all this. They showed us all this how they did things, and oh, it was horrible. Kind of uh, the women were there skinning herring and all this kind of stuff, and it was kind of smelly at that point. In that point, uh, we went to that, and what? Then after that, we went to one of the more modern canneries, and they were freezing the vegetables, fish rather, freezing as well as canning them. But one thing we learned there, they canned. Oh, they had all these various cans, all out of this one batch of things, put them into cans, and then they took different labels. They were all the same. So if you bought one brand and you bought another brand, it was the same thing. So you really were paying for the label, I guess. You know, whatever. So we learned that. That was one thing we learned. You might say, "Oh well, I like this brand." These happen to be the sardines, and you might say, "I like this brand of sardines better than such and such," but it was exactly the same thing. They just put different labels on the cans. So see, so when you get into some of these things, you learn a lot. Some of the places do have tours, which they normally have, but some places we got in because Harold wrote all these letters. The girls used to laugh. They'd say, "Whenever we went on vacation, it was always an educational one for us." But, but they were interested in those things. And of course, we were too. And Harold, when he wrote, he'd say, "My wife and I are both educators," and one child was in college, I think, and one in high school or something like that. And so they were just thrilled to have us come to and see all these things. That was one place. Well, when Harold was growing up, when he was a child, I guess with all his reading and so forth, he had in his mind that there were two places he wanted to go. One was Nova Scotia to see the tidal bore. I'll tell you about that if you don't know. I never knew before. Uh, uh, and one was Egypt. Those were two places when he was a child that he wanted to see when he grew up. Well, we didn't take the children to Egypt. We did take them to Nova Scotia, though. We went there a couple times. Well, in Nova Scotia and up in that area, there's the tide comes in very differently from the way it does most other places. It's unique there, I believe. What it is, the tide, all places, when the tide comes into a beach or whatever it is, it comes in slowly, and it fills up, and then it gets high tide, and then it goes back low. Well, up there at that one particular thing, there's what they call the tidal bore, BORE. What it is, the tide, it's low tide, and the tide all comes swishing in all at once to high tide. It doesn't come in slowly. Now that's very different from anything. I don't know if there are other places in the world that this happens, but it does happen there in Nova Scotia. And since Harold was a child, that was something he wanted to see. So we did go to Nova Scotia several times. But anyway, the first time it was very interesting because we never saw anything like that. And I don't know I don't know why I don't know that, but that there are other places in the world where this happens. There must be. I don't know. But Harold always knew that was something he wanted to see. But that's what they call the tidal bore, BORE. But I didn't ever know anything about it. But Harold did. Oh yes, yes. But not with the girls. That'll be one of the places we'll talk about when yes. Oh, so Harold got to see he went to Nova Scotia and he went to Egypt.